Welcome to another episode of Strength for Today with your host here, Eric Dykstra. And today we have the joy of unpacking the first four characteristics of what it looks like to be bonded in joy or love. And I hope these are helpful for you, and I hope they become a tool that just helps you begin to look at your relationships. And like I said on Monday, this might be a little bit challenging or difficult just based on your past experiences and relationships, but my goal and heart really is to help us understand and to be able to move towards loving and secure relationships with God, but also with each other. And so I am going to be drawn again from the Journey Group book that I mentioned earlier. And then another great resource that is one of the best books that I have read on this is a book called Living from the Heart Jesus Gave You. And this is by James Wilder, Ann Bierling, Rick. I don't even know how to really pronounce these names, but Living from the Heart That Jesus Gave You is an incredible resource that really goes into these love and fear bonds. It also goes into the different types of trauma and how we recover. And the whole goal is really to live from the heart that Jesus gave us and to feel fulfilled, to be full of joy, that we are glad to be together, and that the Lord is glad to be with us. And so I'm going to give you just a distinction of one characteristic, and we're going to go through four today. And I hope you can see the difference between the two, and it gives you a little bit of context to help us understand God's heart in terms of our relationship. So number one is that the bond is based on love and characterized by truth, closeness, intimacy, joy, peace, perseverance, and authentic giving. These are all qualities of what a loving relationship looks like, is that it's characterized in love, that it stands for truth. It's got a sense of being close with that individual. It's intimate, it's joyful, peaceful, it perseveres, and it's authentic. I hope you've had opportunities to be in relationship with people that have these characteristics. And two ways to really look at this is that this defines the God we see in Scripture and how his desire is to attach with us. And for a lot of times, if we're honest, this doesn't seem true of the God in Scripture when our experience of relationships with one another in this world have been so different. So here's what a fear bond looks like. That's the opposite of what I just read, of what they're characterized by. So a fear bond is based on fear and characterized by pain, humiliation, desperation, shame, guilt, and or fear of rejection and abandonment or other detrimental consequences. So one that has been really out of a place of being hurt and as a painful place. And I'm sure we've all had experiences maybe where, we've been humiliated or we've been desperate for something, or we felt a level of shame and guilt. And what tends to happen then is we begin to not trust people. We begin to keep them at a distance so that we feel safe and secure. And really our fear is in being hurt or rejected or humiliated or becoming desperate for people to love us. And we start to form a false view of who we really are. So that's the first characteristic of what a love bond is characterized by. And those characteristics were truth, closeness, intimacy, joy, peace, perseverance, and authentic giving. But one of fear is out of pain, humiliation, desperation, shame, the fear of reaction or abandonment, and other detrimental consequences. So here's number two. It is desire driven if it's based in love. We actually want to be together, and we have joy in knowing that the other person is glad to be with you. So it's desire driven. It's the desire in my heart to be close with this person. A great example of that I hope you've experienced or are experiencing currently is if you are married, having a joyful relationship, being rooted in love, where it's out of desire and it's not out of the fear of the other person. So one of fear, the opposite of that would be avoidance driven. because of what we've experienced in life, what often tends to happen is our heart becomes closed, it becomes calloused. And a great way of thinking about this is think about your hand, if it was cut right here by something sharp, like a knife, and you go and put your hand out. And when you see a knife, your first reaction is to close your hand and to withdraw because you've been hurt in that way before. So you're going to avoid that knife. And it's the same way in what happens in relationships a lot of times, is that we often are hurt, and relationships can get messy, and we often try to avoid the chance of that happening again, or being hurt in the same way. And we are not able to trust, we are not able to really pursue healthy relationship or being connected with other people, because we're trying to avoid them in the negative feelings of feeling pain. So number 3 is that we grow stronger both when we are together and when we are apart. This is a characteristic of a love bond, is that when we're together, I'm enjoying the time that we have and I'm fully present in that moment. But when we're apart, I'm putting you in my mind. And even though we're apart, I'm anticipating the next time that we get to be together. And there's a sense that I'm glad to be with that person in the future. I've got several friends like this that we could go months without seeing each other, but I often think of them. I pray about them. I might call them by phone, but when I get to see them in person, I know that my heart is going to be full of joy. And it's like we haven't even missed the day of being apart from each other. I hope you have friends like that. And I hope that God brings them into your life, because it really is truly an incredible thing to have, is a friend that or a loved one that is so glad to be with you, and you can grow stronger by both being apart and by being together. So the opposite of that is that you feel like you can only grow stronger by moving closer or being further away. For example, the closer we get, the scarier it gets. So I have to avoid the closeness. Or the farther away we get, the scarier it gets. So I have to manipulate closeness. See, this isn't defined of a relationship that we see in Scripture, is that there is a fear that if we're not together, we are going to grow apart. And there's that fear of separation or rejection, or it's the other way, where it's a fear of being too close, that they're getting to know all the stuff inside of me and I can't let that happen. So that's one that's going to be based out of fear. Number 4, and the last one that we'll look at today, is simply this, is that we can share both positive and negative feelings. The bond is strengthened by this truthful sharing. So you can experience negative and positive emotions, and that you're not afraid of them. I'll say this for my wife and I, is that I grew up not really being great at being able to express my emotions, and not really knowing how to process negative emotions that I would feel. And to this day, I still have a hard time being able to express those feelings. And when there's conflict, or when there's something that needs to be resolved, whether that's with a family member, my spouse, or my kids, what I can tend to do is become avoidant and shy away from it, and not move towards it, willing to embrace that the outcome or the fruit of that is going to be to restore that relationship. One of the terms that I've heard recently is ruptures in relationships create a stronger bond with another. And so what does that mean? For me, it has meant this, that we grow stronger and closer together through hardship and through suffering. And just like we've talked about previously, that going through hard things together, and something that a protector does, is they share the load of burdens and suffering. And when we are bonded in love, we are sharing both those positive and negative experiences, and realizing that we don't have to be afraid of the negative emotions that we might feel. and that we're willing to be together in those times as well. So the opposite of that in fear would be this, is that we cannot share both positive and negative feelings. The bond is strengthened by avoiding negative or positive feelings, or by seeking only negative feelings or seeking only positive feelings. So these are kind of some telltale signs of being rooted in love and joy or being rooted in fear. And my real true belief is that the Lord wants us so desperately and desires so much for us to be bonded securely. But yet so many of us, and if we're real and honest with each other, are bonded in relationship to other people and with God out of fear, which often leads to being hindered, limited, and restricted in life, because God's original design for our relationships was to be in secure attachment. And one of the things that I have found extremely encouraging to me is that we can learn the brain skills or the relational skills that we need in order to change these behaviors. And if we have a lot of relationships that are bonded in fear, that our brain can adjust and we can learn new skills and form healthy, positive, and joyful relationships with each other, we can continue to grow and progress. It is never too late, and we are always progressing. And one of the things that's in my heart that I hope to be able to do and create and foster for other people, such as yourself, is to create these communities of belonging and help implement these within our families. And that's one of the things of where I'm drawing this content from a little bit, is from this whole journey group curriculum. And I've shared my experience with having led and leading these online journey groups that really have the intent of equipping and training people to be able to lead and facilitate small groups within their homes, within their communities, because I really believe that the Lord is doing such a work around this state and concept of belonging, so that when we belong and we can feel connected with God and connected with each other, there is so much more of our identity that comes to the surface that makes an impact on the world around us. And that's one of the greatest things that I've shared in the past episodes. What I see in the Gospel of John was that one of the greatest aspects of Jesus's life on earth was how securely he was connected to his Father's words, his mission, and the vision that his Father had for him. And I believe that's the greatest calling on our life, is to live in secure, right relationship with Jesus. So I pray that you'll come back on Friday, where we'll finish this up, and I'll give you the last 4 characteristics of the love and the joy bonds. And I'll even post these maybe in the descriptions below each of these episodes, but go back and listen to this and come back Friday, where we'll bring it to an amazing close and hopefully give you some practical tools of how you can move forward if this has been your story about being bonded to other people and God in fear. So I'll see you next time.